Working on my 2006 Lexus IS350, and it unfortunately has the relatively common front timing cover leak. Mine is, or at least appears to be, right around the banjo bolt area, and then it's been dripping down the rest of the entire block, and it's also all over the front crankcase area of the motor. So if anyone's looked into this before, what Lexus wants to do is to remove the entire engine, because to take it apart, it's actually faster book time for them to actually drop the engine out of the car and tear the whole entire front engine apart, because you have to do that in order to remove the metal front timing cover and then re-RTV it. So that's pretty crazy expensive, and especially on an older car like this, well, relatively older, it's just not worth it for a minor oil leak. So what I've decided to give it a shot is this stuff I found. Permatex penetrating leak repair. Which seems like it should be the perfect product for this job, assuming it works, as it's a very low to no pressure area that's just an existing RTV joint. You obviously don't want to use this stuff like around if your crank seal, your camshaft seal, your rear main seal is bad. This is obviously not what this is meant for. And if you use it for that and you think it's a 1 out of 5 star product because of that, that's kind of on you. So I'm going to give this stuff a go, and hopefully it turns out well. To start off with, I'm going to clean up the entire area, degrease it, and then give it a good prep with brake clean. And after that, the instructions say to apply 3 to 5 coats to the area with at least 1 minute set time in between after bringing the engine up to operating temperature. So my engine right now is cold. Just makes life a lot easier working around to clean it up first. So I'm going to clean it up, bring it up to operating temperature, and then spray down the area, which, let's see if I can kind of point it out here. It is right along that seam where you see the 2GR, and it just kind of follows up the engine. So it's mostly leaking from up top, but I'm just going to spray the entire seam just to be safe. Thankfully in mine it's only leaking on the passenger side, which is a lot more easy to access than the driver's side, where you have the AC compressor and your alternator. So I'll go ahead and clean that up, and then we'll cut back later. Alright, and it's the next day, and hopefully, as you can tell, I've gotten the area as cleaned off as best as I can anyways. And the engine's been warmed up to operating temperature, and did an oil change at the same time. It's convenient. You don't have to do it for this sort of thing. However, if you were going to be trying to reseal something like an oil pan where the oil level may be around where the actual leak is, I would obviously strongly recommend draining the oil for that. However, here it's not necessary. So the oil leak, as best I can find, appears to actually be coming from around the banjo bolt area. It's not the banjo bolt itself that's leaking. I already replaced the crush washers on that, thinking that may potentially be the case, but it does appear to be the actual front timing cover around where the banjo bolt is at. Also, fun fact, if you do end up needing to replace those crush washers in that banjo bolt, you can just get the crush washers from Toyota if you know the part number. Save yourselves a few bucks. So I cleaned the area with engine degreaser. I used up probably 3/4, 2/3 of the can, so quite a bit to degrease the whole area. And then as a final prep, I actually used isopropyl alcohol. It only recommends just using engine degreaser or brake cleaner, but I figured to give it as best a chance as I can. Also, I used a pick to scrape off some of the excess RTV around the joint. That was kind of like squeeze out from factory kind of thing, just so that the sealant has the easiest path possible to be able to get to where the leak is at. Also, obviously be careful not to try to pull it out of the gap or anything like that. Just kind of just cut it off the edge so that it'll have a nice clean line of sight to the actual leak itself. And I find these Q-tips, even though this one broke on me, quite handy to get into all the little recesses and crannies in the block to be able to clean it out properly. Likewise, the bunch of shop towels. So the can comes with your typical straw, your straw nozzle, and also it comes with in the cap another spray nozzle, which I assume is just a fan pattern, but for this one we're just going to be using the straw itself because it's more of a precision area, and it makes it a lot easier to get in up and behind that banjo bolt area. So as per the instructions on the can, so the engine's up to operating temperature. The area's already been pre-cleaned, and I pre-cleaned it again after bringing it up to operating temperature with the isopropyl alcohol to remove any extra drips that may have come from the warm-up process. So we're going to apply it liberally to the area. I think it's right by the banjo bolt, but I'm just going to do that whole seam along the side of the engine just to be safe. And it says to use 3 to 5 coats. I'm just going to go straight for the 5 coats because I don't want to do this again, ideally, and give it the best chance possible. And then after that, you want to wait 30 to 45 minutes before turning the engine back on, which I have the car part to do a whole bunch of other little odds and ends, so that's not going to be an issue here. So I'll go ahead and apply the sealant, and I'll check back in later. Alright, I got the 5 coats on, and as you can see, it goes on clear. However, one thing I didn't expect is, even with the straw, the spray pattern for this is quite wide, and it's not like you're just going to hold down the nozzle and spray and pray kind of thing. You're going to have to do a little quick burst to avoid making too much of a mess, but even still, you're going to want to put down some shop towels because this stuff, you're looking at the spray pattern of almost the size of a golf ball, I guess, probably from about inch and a half away. And it kind of makes sense when you look at the actual straw on the can. It's a lot larger than your standard straw, as you can hopefully tell. The inner diameter is probably 3 times the size, maybe. And it makes sense because if you're spraying sealant out of something, one of these little straws that you usually see for brake cleaner or something like that is just going to clog up immediately. So I assume that's probably why they went with the larger straw size. Also, once you're done spraying it, I'd highly recommend cleaning out this straw with degreaser or isopropyl alcohol or brake cleaner or something, because if you want to use it again, this is a non-standard straw size. And I can only imagine how big of a friggin' pattern that fan tip makes. So you're going to want to reuse this, and you're going to want to clean it out so it doesn't get gummed up with the sealant you just sprayed into it. So now that's all done, I'll put it back together, and I'll check in probably after, let's say, a tank of gas, and see if there's any noticeable signs of oil leaks. And fingers crossed there won't be. Alright, so it's been a couple weeks in the tank of gas, and just checking back up on the leak, and it is still weeping very, very slightly. Barely at all compared to what it was before. After I did the initial treatment, I ran it the next day and then turned it off and watched for leaks, and it was actually still leaking, and I had to clean it up and do the coats over again. My leak specifically is really buried behind this friggin' banjo bolt. Even with an inspection mirror from down below, I couldn't get a good visual on exactly where it's coming from. I'll try to overlay some pictures here if I can figure out how to make that work from that I took during that process. Anyways, I redid the coats again, 5 more coats, and I really manipulated the straw in and around the backside of the banjo bolt, as I assume it's coming right around that friggin' area. And it pretty much stopped the leak entirely. And, well, it appeared to anyways, at least from leaving it overnight in the same situations where the leak had reappeared. And now there's just a very, very slight skip you can barely see from the leak. So it's diminished it significantly. It's hard to say if it's that I missed a tiny spot or if it's that the leak is slowly reappearing over time. I'm going to check back in this in the next oil change, and I'll leave either a pinned comment or in the description for the video what I find at that point, either if the leak has come back in total or if it's stayed down to a dribble. And if it stayed down to a dribble, I'll probably give it another smash of 5 coatings and go from there. Overall, for the price of the product and the fact that it does seem to have worked somewhat, I'd say it's worth a shot for something like this, where the alternative is a massive headache. Obviously, don't use this to fix valve cover gaskets or something that's only just like a few hours of your time. But like with this, where you have to tear the whole engine apart to fix a minor oil leak, I definitely give this a whirl. And also a couple other points is that this dries on clear and relatively hard. You can kind of see the, Focus, come on. You can kind of see the shine down there. It dries clear and somewhat hard. It's probably somewhere between like a polyurethane bushing and like RTV sealant. Somewhere between those two. Like you can still kind of dig your thumbnail into it, but it's not like undercoating or something that's super soft either. So it's an interesting product. And yeah. Hopefully another hit of it and my leak will be gone next oil change, but I'm not going to do that again yet just because I'm curious to see if it's going to come back over time or not. Thanks for watching.